Agree. The roll call, the only ones we are missing tonight is Kim. No, she's, I saw her. So that brings us to approval of minutes from our June 16th meeting.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed or abstentions? We do have two abstentions from Kenny and Chris.
Can you just repeat the motion and second that comment? Thank you.
And the second was?
All set.
Okay, there is no adjustments to the agenda. That brings us to persons desiring to address the board. Do we have a sign up over there? I didn't know. Generally, we have a sign up over there, but I'm not sure that we put it out. So is there anybody who would like to address the board this evening? Just step up to the mic. All right.
Would this be a time to talk about a topic that's gonna be discussed later?
Yes, so if there's during any topic that we have on the agenda or not on the agenda, this would be the time that you discuss that.
Okay, go up there.
Yep.
The house, right? So I actually spoke with, Ms. Nichols earlier this morning. My name's Laura Lazier. And I just wanted to talk, is this even on?
No.
Oh. Sorry. But I just wanted to talk about the masking situation and propose a possible plan for maybe there being an opportunity for at least one class per grade, or however the numbers may work, for there to be a class that does have mandatory masking. So not necessarily everybody, but that option.
Okay, so we'll talk about that later in the meeting, and
Okay.
hopefully your question will be answered, and we'll touch on it.
Perfect.
Anyone else? Okay.
Is this one I'm supposed to go? You'll sign. Okay.
That brings to my chair report. We have two new board members joining us this evening. There was nobody here before to introduce them, so I'll introduce them again. We have Kenny Humphrey and Chris Labonte, both from Winterport. You guys want to say anything? You don't have to. No, you good? All right. So, in your packet, you'll see our exhibit. What is that exhibit? Yeah, BAA. That is a school board policy that every month we put one in for review. So please review that on your own. And that takes us to personnel.
It is related to the school board self-evaluation.
That's right.
So what I'd like to share with the board is that in previous years, there has been question about the efficacy of the school board self-evaluation. And so we would like to have you review that so that we can move out if we are indeed going to self-evaluate this year, because that is coming up as an expectation for August. And if it is the will of the school board from prior discussions you've had about considering not continuing with that activity for policy, we need to discuss that as well. So I don't know that anyone might have comments now, but just know that's a future decision.
Yeah, and if you see in the regulation, we do have to, if we do decide to go forth with that, August is when that rolls out. So I don't know where that conversation, I guess in policy, that conversation would have to happen. What, tomorrow night? Is that when? Tomorrow night.
Should the rest of the board introduce themselves to these two gentlemen who don't know who they are?
Sure. Let's start right on the end with Jim.
All right, we're good. Jim Baines, Hampden.
Lester French, Hampden.
Alan Gordon, Frankfurt.
John Holmes, Winniport.
Jane Dyer, Hampden.
Sorry.
Christine Boone, Assistant Superintendent.
Wigan Nichols, Superintendent.
And I'm Heath Miller.
Rob Frank, Winniport. Tony Liberatore, Hampden.
Faye Anderson, Hampden.
Jessica Hamilton, Newburgh.
Jacob Brown, Hampden Student Representative.
Tanya Jean-Jacques, Hampden.
All right. So it would be during this meeting where we would need to appoint a ad hoc committee to evaluate the school board. So I don't know if we want to do that now and then talk tomorrow in policy, or I mean, we could move forth or not move forth after policy, but if we don't take volunteers for that committee, then we'll be together again. So is anybody interested in joining Rob in that committee?
Since I'm on the superintendent evaluation, might as well keep on the roll.
Okay, so Les and Faye, anyone else? Okay, so 3 would work, so they'll be getting with you, Rob. Well, Rob as vice chair is the ad hoc committee chair. All right, that brings us to personnel.
This evening I have several resignations to announce. We have received resignations from Jill Starrett, a grade 3 teacher at the Weatherby School. Julia Fasano, who's been a part-time Spanish teacher for us at the Reedsbrook Middle School. Ashley Borden, who also has been teaching at Reedsbrook Middle School, grade 8 special education, has resigned. Amy Light, speech pathologist part-time at Wagner Middle School, will be resigning, as will Lisa Theohardis, excuse me Lisa, I know I didn't do well with your name, school nurse, and she has been serving Reedsbrook Middle School and the Smith School for us and has resigned. And what I'd like to say to all of our employees who are stepping away, thank you so much for your service. In every case, we've appreciated that so much, and we certainly wish you well in your future endeavors. Now we have an equally long list of people who will be joining us, which is wonderful news. So I'd like to announce the following hires, and we'll be asking for board action. Our first employee, Cynthia Donovan, as gifted and talented teacher. Cindy has been working with us in the GT program, and she has 6 years experience working in the district and has a bachelor's from University of Maine. I would put forth Cindy Donovan at a salary of $38,500.
Okay, so we have a motion from Tony, a second from John. Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, go ahead.
Those salaries are all established based on the negotiated contract with the teachers union.
It's established from the prior contract that we would still live under until we elect the new one, yes.
Anything else? All those in favor? Any opposed or abstentions? All right, it's unanimous.
And is Cindy with us tonight? Well, congratulations to you, Cindy. Next, we have Stephen Austin as a nominee for special education teacher at Hampden Academy. Stephen has 25 plus years teaching experience and a master's degree in education from the University of Maine. We are recommending Stephen at a salary of $70,903.21.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed or abstentions? That's unanimous.
And Stephen? Thought I saw you there. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sarah Chandler. Sarah is our nominee for grade 3 teacher at George B. Weatherby School. Sarah has conducted her student teaching and long-term substitute teaching in the Bangor School Department and has a Bachelor's of Science in Elementary Education from Liberty University. We are nominating Sarah at a salary of $38,500.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed or abstentions? It's unanimous.
And I believe Sarah's with us. Congratulations. Next, we have Andrea Bazzino as our nominee for Assistant Director of Special Education. Andrea has been a teacher in our system, a special education teacher in the district at several of our schools, and has a CAS in special education from the University of Maine. We are recommending Andrea at a salary of $71,100.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
What's your years of experience? I'm sorry. I missed it.
Andrea,
Hi, I didn't hear what was
your
that.
years of experience.
12 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so I just want to say we've had a couple salaries that are on the upper end of the scale tonight, but we're blessed to have these people with experience come into our district, and so all those in favor? Opposed or abstentions? Thanks.
Andrea, congratulations. Okay, beyond that, I would like to recognize transfers that are occurring in our school district. An important transfer that we have this year is Carol Gormelin. She has been a grade 7 and 8 social studies teacher at Wagner Middle School and will be moving to social studies teacher at Reedsbrook Middle School. We also are announcing the transfer of Nicholas Raymond, who has been assistant principal at Hampden Academy and will now become principal at the Samuel L. Middle School.
All right, we don't need a vote, but let's have a round of applause.
We also would like to announce this evening that we have transfers between administrative assistant positions. We have a transfer of Rebecca Moore, who is the main office coordinator here at Hampden Academy, to the central office as administrative assistant. And we are announcing the transfer of Sherry Woodside, who has been an administrative assistant at Weatherby School, transferring to Hampden Academy as an administrative assistant. And we also are announcing the hire of Nikki Nupp for 10 hours a week of communication specialist duty for our school district to work on how well we push out information to all of our constituents. So we are looking forward to that. Congratulations to all. This evening, reading the essential behaviors and outcomes is Rob Frank.
Education enables all students to learn the skills, acquire the knowledge, and develop the attitudes necessary for them to reach their potential as citizens who can meet the challenges of a changing global society. We believe that all citizens in our community share the responsibility to educate our children and themselves. Our schools are community support systems and should welcome and encourage all members of our communities to participate, and our schools will have a supportive and empowering atmosphere for all students and community members.
At this time, we'll have an assistant superintendent update.
The last 2 days were spent in a leadership retreat with our administrative team, and we want to thank and congratulate them for all of their efforts. In the true spirit of collective advocacy, all of our administrative leaders presented and offered professional development to each other. It was a very rewarding and constructive 2 days. Potluck all the way for our leadership team. But we did get off campus, and so it does give us a flavor of some think time out of our normal setting, which always helps. I'd also like to share that our enrollment, which we've been discussing throughout the last school year, is 100 students fewer than prior to COVID. Now, in 2013-14, we had 2,289 students. And again, next year, we're projected at that because we have some pre-K students at Smith School that we know will be coming in from other sources, but they haven't yet enrolled because they don't do that until kindergarten screening at a later day. So we had 3 11th graders graduate early, congratulations to them. And we had 180 12th graders graduate. So in next month's report, when we have a full rollover and more complete data, you'll have an update on that, but that's where we're skimming the surface right now. And remember, homeschool students do not have to apply and register with the state until September. So we're still working on trying to connect with those families and see if they would be interested in coming back to RSU 22.
When do you typically see tuition student number, or does that include those numbers?
That does include tuition students. Though I will say we got an email as recently as yesterday that more tuition students are coming on board. So that's why this is a snapshot of where we are right now.
Christine, has there been any talk about where our numbers were off so bad last year? That's going to affect us this year. Are we averaging those through 3 years? Or remember something like that?
So there is a 3-year average of enrollment, and so you may recall that last year the Department of Education made an adjustment to the K-5 class size rate to try to mitigate the effect of lowered enrollment. And they will continue to look at that again this year and potentially forward that same mitigation strategy if we are seeing across the state that their enrollment declines, or they may choose to change that if we do find that students are returning to school. All right, this is a special time on the agenda because I am going to introduce to you a very special person in RSU 22. Andrea Lee has been not only a teacher for us, but also a Special Olympics coach for years and has grown a program for which you've heard about tremendous success along the way, and tonight is no exception. So what I'd like to do is introduce Andrea Lee to the podium so that she can introduce to you what a wonderful honor has been bestowed across our Special Olympics system this year.
Thank you. And now my heart is pounding.
Flip it up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Lee. She just introduced me. We are very fortunate in our school system to have a wonderful Special Olympics program. And I was talking with Mr. Raymond and realizing that I don't know all of you, so welcome to those of you that are new to the board. But I did just want to give a brief synopsis of what Special Olympics is so that everybody has an understanding. The Olympics in Tokyo are happening. Friday night is opening ceremonies. Well, the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, is the governing board for the Olympics, the Paralympics, and Special Olympics. A lot of people don't realize that what we are doing in our district is at the same level, in a sense, as the Olympics that we're going to be watching in Tokyo. The difference is, Tokyo, elite athletes, right? And then the Paralympics is usually somebody that has like a physical handicap or something like that. And Special Olympics is for those that have an intellectual disability of some sort, or some sort of delay, autism, Fragile X syndrome, stuff like that. So with that being said, we are very fortunate in our district to have this program that allows our students that may or may not have had a chance to be at the elite level, like some of our students do, and they are able to compete at a more elite level altogether. So this year we have students selected for the 2022 USA Games. And I'm going to pass the microphone, everybody can introduce themselves.
I'm Benjamin Crystal, and I just want to say that being unified really means a lot to me, and I'm very grateful to be a part of my unified basketball team for Hampden Academy.
Hi, I'm Maggie Wars. Unified and Special Olympics has always meant everything to me, so it's really important. Hi, my name is Kaylin Goss, and Special Olympics gives me a chance to be on the Michael Phelps Foundation and youth leadership and being an assistant coach.
Hi, I'm Lauren, and I think being in Special Olympics is a good opportunity for me to remain healthy and represent the school and my state in the games happening next year.
Hello, I'm Evan. I believe that Special Olympics is a very important way to celebrate people who have intellectual or physical disabilities in situations where they would not otherwise be able to celebrate those. Thank you.
So the 2022 USA Games are what is considered the national games. So we have the local games, we have the state games, which are typically at Orono or at Sugarloaf, and then we have the national games, and then we have the world games. Both Madison and Kaylin have participated in the world games. Lauren was selected as an athlete for the winter games for, was it snowshoeing? Yep. And
Wait, so I was an alternate.
Yeah, you're selected as an alternate. So we do have students that are current and former that have traveled the world within our programs. This year, for the 2022 USA Games, we have different components. We have Madison going as a bowler, Kaylin as a swimmer, Lauren as a track athlete, and then Evan and Ben and myself were selected to go as the Unified Youth Leadership Experience, which helps our Unified Champion Schools program continue. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then we just found out that Evan was also selected as the United States Youth Ambassador, which just took place, which is a separate program, and they're flying us to Washington, D.C. in a couple weeks. Thank you all so much for your support of Special Olympics over the years. We're very fortunate to have the program in all 6 schools, and I'd like to see it continue. And I guess that's about it. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, as always, we're incredibly proud of not only what you initiate and generate for students, but also to the students. We are so proud of you, and we know that you are going to be fantastic representatives for the state of Maine and RSU 22. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right, as they're departing, we'll change gears to our next agenda item, which is an August board retreat and strategic planning. And I'm going to put in parentheses, if it's possible. We recognize we have a lot of people who are busy with summer activities, and everyone has wanted to get out and make a plan to do something fun, so I hope you are. But we'd also like to put out there, if the second week in August, if there would be opportunity for dates that you feel you could get away. And what we're proposing is to have 2 separate getaway times that are about 3 hours each, so that you can work with the administrative team and Tina and myself to facilitate knowledge about the strategic plan direction, what we've accomplished already, and then where you would really like to see goals and objectives head. So if I could hear any proposals or possibilities about those dates, we can solidify this later, but just get the conversation started. We're flexible. I had suggested multiple days because I figured it'd be easier for people to get away for 3 rather than 6. But if it's the will of the group to go for a full day, we certainly could do that.
I would prefer a full day, just then I know I have the whole time dedicated. I don't have to coordinate, but I'll do what I need to.
So you're thinking of a full day during the week or weekend day, or you're still staying flexible?
Well, we were certainly thinking of the weekday, but we did recognize that we might need to use evenings, and I will say I would go back to the admin team to talk about a weekend if that's something that is of interest to you.
Could possibly start something in the afternoon, mid-afternoon, and still get it all done. If you're talking 6 hours, right? You could end it, it wouldn't have to be at 8 o'clock. You could get through most of your day.
Location in mind?
Right around here. Keep it close.
Smoke and steel.
Those maxes, one's
Right.
steel. Yeah.
I would only ask if we could do it, that is a week that we're actually away on the water, we can move it to, maybe it's a Monday or a Friday, we can at least book it there and just delay a start or come back early. That works, I'd love to participate, so.
Well, I guess Mondays for me are out this summer, I'm dedicated to a town commitment here.
So I think maybe I'm hearing a proposal for Friday the 13th.
Well, that's appropriate, that's, couldn't be more appropriate. I'm available.
So if we did something Friday the 13th, starting at like maybe noon, and then, no?
It's fine.
Yeah. You could meet some of it, or not that
I can write you some of it.
Yeah. Oh,
I was just gonna say, maybe we start at, say, 10, and that way we're done. We do a lot of camping over the weekends,
Yes.
so,
Alright.
Friday night, you only have 2 nights to leave, so, that would be one of our weekends to go with it. I can't do Friday night, I probably can do Friday.
Okay, so it would have to be.
And possibly, well, and possibly Monday. I mean, Jim said he can't make it, but I mean, that's not a mean thing.
We'll do it.
If everybody but Jim can make it, we can make exception.
Do what
Okay.
do what the majority needs there.
Right. You do, just do the majority, and we can make it.
Right.
So what we'll do is send out a doodle poll. We've kind of got the pulse of what could be possibilities, and it looks like we might need to look outside of these parameters, and we'll get something together so that we can get this done and allow you to still have your summer. And if we have to push some of the work off into September, that's okay. If we even got started, get launched, we can do that as well. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next on the agenda, we do have masks in school, and I would like to refer you to your blue folder because you do have some information in your blue folder, and you do have information in your board packet that was sent electronically. Once you have materials out, I will go ahead and just kind of give you the lay of the land. So I'm going to start with what we know for sure, because one thing we've learned about COVID is there's a lot you might try to predict, but not always as much that you know with certainty. So what we know for certainty is masks are required on school buses. And the reason for this is a federal mandate. It has nothing to do with something specific happening in our region. It's that the federal government expects that on all public transportation, planes, trains, and automobiles that are public, you do have to wear a mask, and public school buses are considered to be mass transit that are in that federal category. So we had moved away with the recommendation status of masking in Maine to allow the students to ride the bus to summer school without masks. And so did just about every other school district. And so we were contacted and told that there needed to be clarity around this, and the commissioner wrote to us today that yes, we do have to institute that. So we have contacted the school bus company, we have made contact with parents, and we will be resurrecting masking for 1 week as summer school concludes next week. So I want you to know that. Further, oh, go ahead.
Have there been any documented cases of transmission?
None. So as we move forward toward next school year, we are in a status with CDC compliance where the CDC is making a strong recommendation that all those who are unvaccinated be masked. And we also had a very recent recommendation from the American Academy of Pediatrics that just came out on Monday that is making a claim that all students above age 2 should be masked, whether vaccinated or not. And so I've given you some of that information to read over. As we move toward school starting in the fall, as you can imagine, I'm starting to get a pickup in people contacting me about our status with masking, and I've really appreciated it because the questions have been quite thoughtful and people are thinking ahead and very interested in making plans. What I have suggested to folks that I have talked to is that for us to make a decision right now seems premature because things are changing daily. We're going to, just like we saw last year, we get new advice every week from expert panels. And quite frankly, RSU 22 has done very well in following the recommendations and requirements of the CDC. And right now we are at a status of the word should. The word should has different meanings to different people. And what I would prefer is that we have some time for our Department of Education to weigh in on what should means. Because some people equate should with I have to. And some people equate should with it's not equal to must. So I think there's more to come here. And I just would want to say to you that the essential element here is safety. I think the direction we're tracking is that it is always an option to wear a mask in RSU 22. We've never had anything but an expectation that people are able to do that. The risk that we also have, besides the safety side of things, is financial. We are deep into pulling down federal funds. I have to literally physically check a box that we are following all CDC mandates. And just like the busing decision that we had to reverse, that was critical that that happened as soon as possible because we are making those decisions financially. So I just thought we could have a discussion tonight and talk about where your thoughts are at, what you would like to see going forward, and if we can wait until August to make a formal decision.
I would say in good faith, it would be fine to wait until August. I think that the community knows that our children's health and safety is at the forefront. We're not looking to make a political statement. We're not looking to make it political. We're simply making sure our kids are safe and healthy, and we need the most current guidelines to do that. And like my motion was premature in June, waiting for the June 30th date, I'd say that I won't be making a motion today because it would be premature, but the community knows that we are on top of it, doing our research, and everybody is considering all of the guidelines for our kids' health and safety.
Well said.
I do know that tomorrow morning, Dr. Nirav Shah is doing a video thing for superintendents and school nurses, so I'll be interested to see what he has to say tomorrow morning. Next Thursday. Oh, next
week.
Sorry, I've lost a whole week in my lifetime, right? So anyway, I think that'll be important to look at also and have that information as we move forward.
Yeah, I agree with Tony. Waiting till August, I think, is the wise decision. As someone who spent a lot of time putting out a blast for the pooled testing, only to find that before the deadline came that it was not even, it was a moot point. So I think it's wise.
Information changes so much.
this is such a fluid situation, I think it would be absolutely ridiculous for us to make that decision tonight, knowing that it could change tomorrow. So I think that we should put this off until August, absolutely. I agree, Tony.
Just a question, remind me, the pool testing was to reduce distance, correct? It did not discuss mass, that was a separate one, right? The assumption is there were still mass, but we were reducing the social distancing, or at least the in-class, so we could fit the students in, correct?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Is our intent to continue the pool testing in the fall? Have we?
This is a great question.
Approval?
Did you get enough parents to sign up for it?
We do not have enough parents signed up as of late. And one thing I would like to implore to our community stakeholders is participation in pool testing is like an insurance policy for us. It might allow us to have more latitude in making some decisions around other mitigation layers. So for us to get those permissions in will be a considerable factor for us. So I would really encourage people to sign on if they feel comfortable doing so.
I think we need to do on the last end, because I never sent in the permission because I assumed it was a moot point as of June 30th with the mandates going away, and I think people need to be advised that, especially if masks are still in the Netherlands as a possibility.
Great idea.
So, yeah, we have a community relations meeting on Monday, so I'll put that on the agenda to get that out there in proper wording.
It wasn't time wasted. It's still litigation.
Do we have a good portion interested in participating, or are we far off? I think it was a percent of.
We haven't reached the 30%, but I will say that I feel at our K-5 level we'll probably see more interest in participation than in the upper levels. And because there are differences in vaccination accessibility at those levels, that makes sense. So what I would encourage though is that my line of thinking right now is for us to be open-minded about possibilities. So you heard tonight this idea of, could we have a classroom at each grade level where masks are mandatory and then masks are optional in other grade levels? I think these types of solutions that aren't black and white, that we could say it's not a yes or a no, it's, well, we have different ways we can be, might be an interesting way to tackle this year. And I'd really appreciate if you could think about solutions like that you might hear from your constituents, so that we can be evaluating all the possibilities and not make this about absolutely we're not going to require masking versus places where we could help someone feel really safe. I have heard some appeals from folks who have students in their families who really are high risk. And so having that safety factor is something that would make a child feel much less vulnerable at school. And we all want that. That's emotional safety. I think that there's a way to get to a yes and have people feel as though we're being safe, we're being astute about it, but also responsible to everyone.
Regan, just a question on that from a space needs standpoint. Assuming that the numbers sort themselves out, do we know from a class size standpoint? I know when you did the last survey that there were maybe 11% that were in favor. Maybe it was a different survey, but I assume it was in the 11% or higher. Does that support maybe a fully occupied class, or is it only half a class? In which case, do we need extra classroom space? Do we have those numbers, or can we try to dig into those?
We don't have the numbers, and we would need to be doing a survey. I will say, as easy as this type of a solution is to think about, it is much harder to think about the pitfalls in these solutions. Because sometimes when you consider, oh yes, we could do that, no problem, then you run into situations where someone is denied getting into a particular class when they really wish they could fit into the class that wears masks or doesn't wear masks. Sometimes you're denying people access or rights by not allowing them to move into a class. Imagine a student moving in from another school and we don't have room in a particular type of class. So all of this needs to be very thoughtfully planned and considered. And I think a survey is a great place to start. We did it last year and it really helped to get numbers. Well, thank you. And we'll move on to our financial report. So this is probably the most cut and dry financial report of the year because it's the first one. We've barely had any movement in our school year thus far. You can see we still have 95.5% of our budget remaining. We have had some expenditures, of course, coming out. We have a payroll going out tomorrow, and we have made some moves with summer projects. That's also what you hear every year about how we're expending money quickly when it comes to our first report of the year. So we're tracking just fine. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about the audit. You did receive a copy of the district audit in your folder. I also have hard copies here tonight that you certainly can look at, and so I will send those around. What I would be hopeful for is members of the Finance Committee and our Finance Committee Chair could comment on the outcomes of the audit. But to summarize, I would say to you that our audit was considered to be very good. We did receive notes of improvement on certain aspects, especially around timeliness for things. And we did receive an area that improvement was needed regarding continuing to improve the timelines of reconciliations of account statements. And since the audit is from a year, almost 2 years now ago, we have instituted different staffing levels in different departments. So we have the same number of people, we've just changed what they do so that we can have more time and attention on that. So I think you'll see in next year's audit that we've really done a fine job to improve that status. But Jim and Finance Committee members, I open it up to you.
The Finance Committee Chair, hold on 1 second. 2, 3, 4. Got that battery, I'm having to use my voice projection. The Finance Committee Chair recognizes the fact that the superintendent's been on top of this almost on a daily basis, and therefore anything I would try to articulate could possibly be insulting to the good work of the superintendent here. It's been tumultuous, obviously, in the last year with everything that needs to be done on top of that. We're going to throw an audit on top of that. I know the audit's routine, but there's really nothing that I plan on adding to this. I think everything's fine unless everybody else has questions or anybody else has questions.
So even in the spot where we needed improvement, it wasn't because there was money misappropriated, it's just we needed to be quicker about checking to make sure. But they didn't find any money missing, correct?
There was no money missing.
There we go. Thanks.
I would like you to know that each year I do contact the auditor independently, so I actually travel to the auditor's office and sit down and have a review for myself, even beyond what the Finance Committee hears, so that I'm very sure to know if there are any specific areas that he would like to see anything change, evolve, or improve. And those meetings have always been very productive and complimentary, so I'm sure this year I anticipate the same. These hard copies are always available in our office if you have an interest in reviewing those. We also will be putting up our audit on the district website so that people can review that as they'd like to. And if you have any questions about anything in the audit or would like to hear more from the auditor, we can arrange that. Hearing no immediate questions, we'll move on to the student representative report. Jacob.
So all is quiet on the student front with it being summer. And I think most of the, I wouldn't call it anxiety, but there's a lot of students wondering about how next year will be scheduled, both personally and in terms of masking, no masking, distancing. But for the most part, I think it's just about passing time so everyone knows. And I think it's all clear at the moment.
Well, thanks for being here on your summer.
One short on the printed versions.
Want to give mine my acronym.
Thank you. And Jacob, did you want to tell him about your college class? Drag you up a little bit. He's going to
I can certainly speak up about that. I'm taking a speech class through Husson to just save a little bit of extra money when going to college, which for students who don't know, very, very good plan. And if you didn't want to do AP but want to do something else, if we could spread that around, I highly encourage it.
Thank you, Sharon.
Do we still have the bridge program or is that kind of dissolved and evolved into something different?
We don't have the bridge program anymore. Mr. Tracy, would you like to speak to UTC?
Yeah, I would say bridge program overall, we still have all the options of courses that students can take. We partner with UMaine, UMA, EMCC, Husson, all the local schools to be able to give the students that experience without giving them that locked in like summer experience and then moving through it as a cohort and then being in the same class together, but still all the same options of courses.
All right, that brings us to questions of board members. Does anybody have any questions this evening? All right, seeing none. That takes us into kind of the way we've been doing it, questions of committee chairs. You've all read the exhibits in your folder, and if you have any questions of chairs or anything that you read in the committee reports, now's the time to follow up on that.
I was also in the minutes to the dropout committee at the very end. There was some mention about the outgoing chair wanted to be voted in, I think, as a permanent community member, and we never do that. So I guess, I know Kim's not there, but she's not here tonight, but I would hate for us to start that precedent. I mean, as a community member, she can come anytime. But we've never voted in a community member. And they said it wasn't voted because it wasn't a quorum.
I didn't see that. I read that.
It's at the very end.
So the reason that I believe that I wasn't in attendance, so I must put that out there first, is because the state requires that we have a behavioral review committee that then has a dropout prevention committee aspect. And in that description from the state, it says you need to have a community stakeholder member. So I think that the committee must have been considering if they were going to align with the state expectation. I think what would be the better term is we would appoint that a person serves in that role instead of vote them in, because it isn't a standing permanent position, but we do need the role filled.
Yeah, that's much different than voting them in.
So what would the role of that individual be? Just to attend meetings, represent the community?
Yes, and represent the interests and impact of dropouts on the school system and the need for the education system to respond.
They're not a voting member. Of course, committees don't normally vote on voting anyway, so.
I don't believe so. It's an advisory committee.
Just as an update on the Spruce Committee, I didn't write a whole board report. We have just now added 2 more communities into the consortium on Spruce. So it'll be a bigger group with the possibility of filling all the slots with 2 more districts being added.
And one of those was unorganized territories, right?
Yes, it was an unorganized territory, so if you're gonna ask me where they're coming from, it's unorganized, I don't know.
I'd like to add regarding the UTC board that Alan has been our long-serving member on that committee, and he continues, and RSU 22's turn has come up for the superintendent to serve in a role as a regional superintendent rep. So I'm sure that Tina and I will be sharing that along the year, but we'll be in attendance at those meetings along them.
I just noticed in reading the athletic report, I didn't know if Tony wanted to expand on the athletic director's new role in the middle schools.
I was not in attendance of that meeting, I apologize.
You, Jane, you?
And if I remember correctly, you can jump in.
If I remember correctly, and please jump in, Heath, but I think that we were looking at expanding Fred's position so that he would help supervise or work in conjunction with the two middle school athletic directors for continuity, and also to bring them in line with what they're doing at the academy so that they would feel more comfortable when they are here. So help make it be a liaison kind of position with it. Is that just about it?
Yeah, no, and I brought it up, I think it's a great thing.
It's a
for our
great
district, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a great idea, and it's one so that everyone is on the same page as these kiddos are moving through the middle school and coming to the high school, and that the expectations are the same and the standards are the same and all of the pieces that go with it, so I think it's a great idea.
And we want to be sure we have equity between the middle schools. So this will be a triangulation, so we make sure that offerings are at least balanced. They won't always be identical, but we are looking for that common experience.
All right, one more?
It's not a committee, but as the representative at the state level on the legislative committee, there are a lot of bills that have passed that will affect this board. And Tina referenced it in her report, but just as an update, this past week, LD 677, which was negotiations, it passed, but the governor vetoed it, and they didn't have enough votes to override the veto. So at this point, it's a moot point.
Which one is that?
That was the one that said under negotiations, we would be able, we would have to negotiate salaries, benefits, and
Arbitration, that arbitration.
that it would go to, well, we'd have to negotiate.
Right.
And then if it went to arbitration, then two arbitrators, one would be chosen by the district, one would be chosen by the MEA, and then an alternate, and we would be bound by arbitration. If they didn't agree with what happened in arbitration, or we neglected to do what the arbitrators said, they could go on strike. So the governor put out a really great letter telling them that, you know, it shouldn't be an arbitrator that makes a decision as far as what we pay teachers and what benefits we give them, so.
There was another one that passed too, wasn't it, or didn't pass, about keeping it local control at the board level?
55.
You mean the funding?
No, setting salaries.
That is there.
Oh, is that it? Oh, it is?
But there was one for the state taking over control,
That's-
55% of your budget, or your, right?
Giving us.
They would give us 55% of our budget.
Versus
Yeah.
49 or 50. All right, that brings us into policy.
Okay, so the first one here is ADF, school district commitment. We had state standards, it's now been changed to learning results. This is directly from MSMA. So we looked at ours, which is quite different than what MSMA was recommending. So we as a policy committee decided why reinvent the wheel, and we adapted it to us, basically using their same language. So with that, I move approval of first reading.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, so all those in favor of first reading of policy ADF? All those opposed or abstaining? All right, it's unanimous.
The next one is KLGA. And this one, again, we really adopted MSMA's policy. There was a concern that our policy didn't really address when it was appropriate or not appropriate to be interviewed by a police officer. So our policy didn't address that, so MSMA's did, again. We decided we might as well use their policy since it's very well written, and we just adapted it to us. So with that, I move the approval of first reading.
So moved.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Well, the first thing I noticed is under item F on the second page, it says serve as a liaison between the schools and RSU 22. I think it should probably read law enforcement or somebody, I don't know what it is. The second thing I would ask about is, if a crime were to be committed at the Smith or Wagner schools, it would have to be prosecuted in Waldo County. And there's nothing in here addressing that issue of what happens with events that occur in Waldo County. And, you know, you could have our SRO go down there for presentations and whatever. But he certainly can't prosecute, he can't do anything in Waldo County. So I think that needs to be addressed in here. The other issue, well, this is a question I have. The last sentence in the, I guess the first paragraph on the second page says superintendent and administrators shall also inform an SRO or Hampden Public Safety when they have reason to suspect that a student or staff member may have violated a criminal law. I would just offer that suspect is a long ways from direct knowledge. And I don't think you ought to be accusing people on suspicions. That can go a long ways. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan. I would like to speak to your comment about Waldo County. We have been in talks around reciprocity being available to our SRO in Waldo County. There hasn't been formality brought to that discussion, but there is interest from both parties in having something worked out so that we would be in a better position if we did indeed have an incident.
I just don't think we should, I think it should be addressed in policy though. Not just that we're working on it, but it should be in here.
All right, those are great suggestions. I saw John over there writing, so I'm sure we'll be working that into the second reading. Go ahead,
Can I
Jean.
just make one suggestion? When we do policies, that the acronyms, the first time the acronym appears, that the actual school resource officer is written out, and then refer to SRO after. But that in all things, something else was in here about prep. And for someone who's brand new, prep doesn't mean anything. So if when we are doing any policy or any communications that use an acronym, that we write it out first time, and then use the acronym later in the passage.
All right, any further discussion? All right.
Oh, just one thing, circling back to Alan's point. I know we're not the only inter-county school district in this state. In fact, Medina comes to mind. They stretch between Knox and Lincoln counties. There has to be some sort of law. If there isn't, we need to talk to our state reps about this, and how to manage that if there is a multiple county school district like ours.
The good news is that the SROs have their state consortium next month, so I can put this question right to that conference.
Well, especially when Waldo County is coming out of Belfast, if there was an emergency. Good luck.
I believe there's actually a deputy that lives in Winterport. He stays in our area.
Yes. Several.
There are also multiple state troopers in our area. This town and is very popular for them to live and bring their kids to our school district, as we should do.
All right, with that, all that discussion, like I said, John will take that up in there, yeah, tomorrow. All those in favor of approving for first reading policy KLGA, well, with those notes that John has for going back to my Dutch. All those in favor? Yeah, John will take care. Opposed? Or abstentions, all right. We count on you, John. Brings us to old business, which I see none. And that brings us to new business, which is discuss and act on the main laptop initiative purchase. And I believe we have.
You do have information on the main laptop initiative purchase in your folder. And just to sum it up quickly, I'm going to turn it over to Nate so that you can hear directly about this. But bottom line, we have used laptops that are MacBook Airs in our middle schools for quite some time, and we are advocating that we continue to use that type of device with our middle school students. And the MILTI, Main Laptop Initiative acronym, program now requires a cost share when you are selecting certain devices. And we are advocating that we participate in the cost share and not select the device that is the cheapest, but is actually going to meet the needs of our students and continue to move us forward. So Nate.
Okay, first of all, it's, speaking of acronyms, it's the Main Learning Technology Initiative. Just so we all get it right. So we, the state's refreshing this year, and they decided to keep it a 3-year cycle. So they gave schools opportunities to partake or to choose different devices for 7th and 8th grade students, as well as teachers of those grade levels and administrative staff. We in the past have put up a committee to decide what device we choose. We put a lot of professional development and education into the MacBook Air, and we have also had a lot of experience in it since the program began. I think it's been in this district probably for at least 15 years, with all of those, with the exception of 3 or 4 being a MacBook Air. So that is the device that we decided to move forward with.
Any questions?
As I'm looking at the budget proposal, the price quote, Nate, is that within the district budget, or is some of that money coming out of the federal funds that we've been given?
No, always fine to ask. This money is going to be funded, we have been approved for this to be funded through our ESSER 2 federal grant. So it's an exciting time because everything just lined up so that we'd have the finances available, the timing is right, and we can still support the students at this level with the robust technology.
We do have money in a separate account that we keep putting money into, so we're not tapping that at this point, right?
For technology?
Right.
We're not tapping that, but what we are thinking about, Nate and I have talked at length, is that we know, for instance, these devices that we're ordering, if you approve, would be utilized for a maximized life. So we would not be turning them back in within a 4 to 5 year period. We try to stretch it to 6, am I right? Yes.
Yes.
And really maximize that. So we're not tapping into the reserve until we have to help refresh.
Okay, so based on this, the 207,000, that's going to come out of ESSER funds, is what you're saying, based on this quote.
We had $388,482.50.
Right, the DOE is going to pay 181. Oh, right.
They will pay a portion of, is it 181, Nate?
They pay so much per device, and I can't remember what that level is.
Okay, sorry.
So, so is that, I mean, based on the quote that we have, Nate, right, the state would pay, the DOE portion would be 181,305, and then the remainder of 207,177 would come out of the ESSER funds.
That is correct, yeah,
Okay.
that's the way I read it.
Thank you.
I understand that.
Thank you.
And just in the field question. This will replace the current books that batteries are, I mean, they're cooked and they don't, if it's not plugged in, they're not operating. These are, how old on average are the machines that we're replacing?
The machines that we're replacing this year are 6 years old. So what they did was they usually replace them in a 4-year cycle. They reached the end of the life there. But they did what they call a bridge year to kind of put more work in what they call an MLTI version 2. And that committee spent a year, the bridge year, determining options and different things that they'd like to apply to the program. And so that made the devices even older. So they will be recycled, and they were replacing old devices. They reached the end of life as far as the battery goes, and as well as operating system upgrades, which make them obsolete.
So will the $395 quantity, that's going to get on both middle schools?
Both middle schools, teaching staff, and administration within the district.
Thanks.
Strictly out of nerdy gadget curiosity, what are the 79 drop sleeves and what makes them so special out of the other 316 PCs?
Well, the drop sleeves, when Apple pitched this product solution to MLTI, they had to meet so much requirements within the request for a proposal. And one of them was protection of the device. And so that's the case that they chose. There is not a lot of flexibility, if any at all, in adjusting that information, but it had to be strong enough so that it could survive a drop test with the device in it, and durable enough to last the duration of the program, 3 years.
But why only 79 of them?
It's a 5-pack.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
There it is. Good catch. Thank you. So there's my flaw.
They didn't feel like the kids needed that kind of protection.
Protect every 5 kids, I get it.
So Nate, the money that's in the budget under the technology line, now that this is coming out of ESSER funds, what do you see that money going for now?
I didn't budget in my lines for this expense. Does that make sense to you? Like, I knew this was going to be talking with me, and this was going to be something we tried to get through with ESSER funds.
Okay, no, sounds good, thanks.
We aren't allowed to use the ESSER funds for anything that is budgeted. So if we had earmarked the money, we wouldn't be eligible.
All right, we will need a motion for this.
So moved.
Second.
Will they be here in time?
Don't answer that.
That's a great question. And the answer is I don't think they will be, but I'm prepared for that. Part of waiting for the grant funds to come through was that we had to wait to the last minute. And as you know, there's a lot of networking equipment, supplies in general that are back ordered. So I've been told 4 to 6 weeks. And then we're gonna need them in our office for at least a week or two to unbox, enroll, and set them up for management for our students and staff.
Don't put yourself on the record for supply chains, I mean, that's just doesn't work.
Will they use the old ones in the meantime?
I actually set aside some Chromebooks. We're going to use those instead, and those are going to stay at school, and hopefully at most 2 weeks, but don't hold me to that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All right, I have a motion from Tony to act on the main laptop initiative purchase with the SR2 grant funds as presented. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed or abstentions? All right, that's unanimous.
And in closing about this purchase, in the past several months, I've been bringing memos to you about expenses that have been above $35,000, seeking your understanding that it's operating under emergency status, so we don't have to bid. I did not bring you a memo like this because we are no longer in a state of emergency in the state of Maine. And secondly, the state does the bidding for the Maine Learning Technology Initiative, and so that's done for us, just so you know.
All right, that brings us to setting meeting dates.
The next board meeting will be, did you say athletic or the executive? It will be the 18th.
I'd like to set an athletic meeting on the 18th at 6 o'clock.
Mary, will we be doing an ed meeting? Do we need an ed meeting that?
It's up to you. I won't have a lot, but we kind of do live.
There won't be a lot?
I don't think there'll be lots and lots, no.
Okay.
It's up to you, though. We can certainly have one.
I just didn't know if before school, because that would conflict with athletic. 'Cause that's
Yeah, I
always-
haven't been able to make a single athletic meeting for a couple of months, so that's why I had to put it on that day.
Okay, so, I mean, if we need to have, Mary, you and I will have to chat and see what would be on it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Can I ask that you give us all the dates for the upcoming year for the board meeting at some point, even through an email or?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We do need a building committee meeting. Since I'm thinking Wednesday, August 4th.
That's gonna be a time when we can't.
Are you okay for Fridays? We do that? Okay.
But that's Alan's call, he's the chair, so.
I'm gonna get back to you both about Friday the 13th, see where that goes. Okay, we can piggyback things.
All right, for the benefit of Chris and Kenyon too, you'll get an updated calendar, like tomorrow, Maria will probably send it out after all these, so if you guys wanna attend any of those meetings, any or all, feel free.
So,
I just have a question. And I apologize for not asking it earlier, but I just saw the calendar and it reminded me. Don't kindergarten classes typically start before all of the kids are in the school? Like an introduction for them before everyone is there?
So we have had times where the students would come to the school and they'd ride the school bus. Is that what you're thinking of? That is an evening activity or late afternoon.
Yep, and then to walk the school, just learn the environment.
I'll have to get back to you about the specifics of the kindergarten days. Do you know that, Jen?
I know that all, at McGraw specifically, because we had this conversation today, that Monday, August 30th, will only be for grades 1 and 2. They're having a separate pre-K, K night, I believe that Thursday, to do the bus ride and that very program, because they'll assign their teachers at that point. It wouldn't have made sense to do it at the same time, and could have been overwhelming, so.
When does that communication come out?
I would say it'd be coming out shortly. I know that they had the meeting today and we had our retreat the past 2 days, so we're starting to gear up for early August communications.
So this doesn't have to do with the date, but I was just looking at the calendar, Tina, and we don't have a location for community relations. You think central office or here?
We haven't, do you want a link for live?
I didn't even think about that. I could do a Google Meet again. I can set that up, that's easy enough.
Because if we do, we could have a rate of central office, and if you expected people would come in person, we want a bigger space than that conference room.
All right, let's do central office. It's summertime, I don't anticipate.
Might turn out.
Yeah.
We'll add that location, sorry about that.
All right, we do have 2 different executive sessions, so we'll need a motion to enter that.
I make the motion to enter executive session, to discuss negotiations in accordance with 1 RSA, section 4056D.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed or abstentions? All right, there's one.